This is number 60, by the way.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I know, it seems like only 10 ago we were at 50.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
Wah, wah, wah. All right. Well, Transfiguration.
People,
let's start
people
this over.
in the area of Transfiguration, we love you. We want you to know Christ.
Amen to that. We are here to bring all those in East Metro to Christ, the source and summit of our daily and eternal lives. And we hope and pray that this podcast may contribute in some small way to that endeavor. I'm Father John Paul Erickson, the grateful pastor of this beautiful parish. I'm joined at per usual by Justin Kortuem, director of formation for the parish. Seems like I haven't been here on the podcast for a while, brother. It's been kind of a busy couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I've been begging for podcasts.
I think you had Father Lynch maybe last week, and somebody else.
Maybe 2 weeks. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, you're right. We had Father Lynch, and then I had the Damascus missionaries.
That's it.
And then I had kids.
That's it.
For the Extreme Faith Camp, yeah.
But Father JP is back.
I forget.
I'm back, as James Brown said.
And he's 100 miles more into his running.
You know, it's funny you should say that. I don't know if it's 100 or not, but I've been very, I need to be careful here because pride goeth before the fall, but I've been pretty darn proud about how I've been doing. And all the lessons I spoke about, last time about running being a mental game have simply been reinforced in these last 4 weeks since last I saw you. It is remarkable. It's remarkable how much it is mental. Now, I will also say, too, and you are a much more experienced runner than I by what's
experienced meaning I have cried more with running shorts on.
Well, there it is. There is some of that. I've experienced some of the different elements of development and experience in running. That is a fact. Anyways, my experience is that not only is it mental, but also, depending upon the day, your body is more or less, gives you more or less trouble. And I'm sure it has to do with all kinds of things, your diet, your rest, your stress level, all those things. But it is it can be a little bit disconcerting because I'd love it if every day that I got out there to run or every evening, I would feel the same, but I just don't.
No,
some days it's harder than others.
Yeah, most runners kind of abide by the rule of thirds. I think we've talked about this before. For other stuff, maybe running too. Maybe that was the marathon podcast. A third of your runs should feel good, like you feel great. Oh yeah, sweet. A third of them should feel like meh, and then a third probably rough.
Yeah,
and obviously you don't want to There's a lot of things you can contribute to the rough ones, like eating, and whatnot. Last night I played basketball, and I had my dinner barely not quite on the way to bed. I was cooking it and I ate it literally as I'm walking out the Actually, no, I did have a plate of food in my car. So yes, I was actually eating it. It's just life.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
So I got to basketball, I start playing and my stomach's I'm not happy with your decisions today, know. And that happens, so we can bring it upon ourselves. But I think it's kind of if you're pushing yourself, then you should have a third of the days where you're okay, I'm a little too tired today, or I should probably go a little slower. That's been a revelation for me is going slower is not bad. Getting in the miles is actually way better than just I'm slow today, I'm going to quit. I'm going to turn around. But getting in slow miles is actually what every marathon, it feels weird to marathoner. I'm compared to most people, I'm walking.
Sure.
Let's be honest.
Sure.
There's probably, I watched a little video, Olympic 500 or 5,000 meter, Olympian. He got bronze or whatever. And he's yeah, this is the first time I've done speed work in a long time. So, even them and a 5,000 meter run is the speed that at which they're going would be me sprinting for 100 meters. So he's just building base too. So I think that's kind of the principle. Yeah, and then a lot of it is mental. Of course, we've talked about walking, giving up.
Yeah.
And there's just so much. That's the part of running that I do like so much, is that it builds mental toughness. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can break you down and crush you if you're don't have some form of mental toughness going in.
Yep.
But it can certainly build up a lot of confidence with mental toughness too. Like,
absolutely.
I'm not going to wimp out when I feel bored after 10 minutes of prayer.
That's true.
Or I say I'm going to do 20 minutes of prayer, and I look at my watch.
It's only been 7.
Literally 3 minutes later.
Right. Exactly. I know. I've been there, done that.
I've done that. Like, it feels like I'm probably halfway.
Yeah.
I'm probably halfway. And then you look and you're like, oh, no.
100%. And in every other area of life, too, I certainly have experienced that in some small measure. Yeah, you're able to, when you're able in this one area of running, which is so concrete, so kinetic, it's you discover that some things are just hard, but they're good to do anyways, and it'll be over, and you just go through it. You just do it.
Yeah, for me, definitely, it's I stole this from Chad Wright. Great. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's got like a podcast. He's a super faithful Christian and talks about, and they actually had a podcast about mental toughness. It's not about the results. It's about a standard of living. It's about doing the work because the work is valuable.
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat Paul Chelimo in a 5,000 meter race. He's the guy that just got bronze this year. But I can put in just as much work as he does, and I can work hard, and it's going to be good for me. And I think that's part of, maybe we're transitioning here. Let's find an obscure way to transition here. I think people undervalue putting in good work.
Amen.
Even if the results are, they don't come, or we don't see them, or we don't perceive them. And there's so much of our spiritual life and just the building up of a human that we don't see.
Yeah.
And running is part of that. Like, you can't go, like we said before, like, you can't just go run a marathon. I mean, you can, but it's going to be ugly and it's going to hurt
you. Yeah.
And the results of that are like, I just want to run a marathon. Okay, fine. But putting in that work those 15 weeks before the marathon is actually just so good for you.
It's true.
It's just good to sit bored in the chapel sometimes and just sit there.
And I think that there are many things that make it more difficult these days than in the past. I mean, we live in an era where everything is so easy and so readily accessible. Everything from cell phones to air conditioners. Again, I'm not bemoaning modern technology.
Well,
at
you
all.
don't like air conditioners, though.
It's true. You're right about that. Fans. Let's use fans. Everything is so easy and easily accessible. And I do think that just like running helps you develop in other areas, I have to say, I think an embrace of comfort without a knowledge of the end for which this comfort is there, or sort of a yearning for something more, we can get in some very bad habits.
Yeah.
And there's the widespread distaste for hard work in many areas of life is a consequence, I think, of some of the advances we've made in other areas, and sort of a double-edged sword. I'm not again advocating we should go back to living on the 17th century farm, but. And I say this to a farm boy himself.
Yeah, the agrarian life is good for the human person.
I do think that there's something to be said for the hard work of farm life that is probably better than the hard work of, staring at your screen for 8 hours, not moving a muscle. So anyways, hard work is important, and it's especially important when you are striving for something great, which friendship, I would say, has got to be right at the very top of that list.
Yeah, my transition was going to be your discomfort with small groups.
Well, that'll work too.
We can go with striving for something hard.
We'll come back to that. There was a wonderful video a couple of weeks ago that Bishop Barron released, per usual. I don't know if he releases any other kinds of videos, and wonderful videos, in my opinion, but he was reflecting upon some recent study about friendship, especially among dudes, and how compared to, 20, 30 years ago when they had the same survey, many more men now indicate that they don't really have many really solid friendships, if any. And the number of dudes who responded to that question, do you have whatever, strong friendships or, whatever the term was.
I think it said close friendships.
Close friendships.
Yeah, as opposed to just,
acquaintances or colleagues
Facebook
at work.
friends.
The number had grown so high from the previous 20, 30 years. And he reflected upon some of the reasons for that. And it certainly got me thinking in terms of my own life and how grateful I am for the friends that I do have, but also the real challenges that people face. Now, I think with some of the aforementioned challenges, especially technology, the challenges people face to develop those friendships and how easy it is to substitute falsities for the real hard work of running the marathon of life together, and putting in that hard work to develop a friendship.
Yeah, and part of it comes with you got to see the value in it. What is friendship for me valuable? And I think it's very easy to live a life and say, no, I'm good. Like,
right. I got what I need.
I hang out with Netflix at night and I watch my shows and I eat my food. And every once in a while I go to like a social gathering, but I don't really have close friends that I'm really pursuing anything together. And just to be a quick little side note, there's different types of friendship too. When we're talking about friendship, there's different types of friendship. So there's a friendship of utility. This is like, Bishop Barron used this example of a barber, or friends that you even would maybe, you're working with your neighbor or something. They help me. They help chop trees down. That's what I'm doing with my neighbor this weekend.
Nice. Cool.
I dog sat for their dog last week, and a month ago they dog sat for our dog. Sure. That's a friendship in some ways of utility. There's kind of this mutual giving back and forth, not totally utilitarian, not I'm like using that person, but there's a friendship of like, okay, we have a common, we're not pursuing something together. We're just kind of hanging out a little bit. You're barber, you talk with them often, but you don't have drinks with them later. You're not having a cigar with them later.
And you're bonded together because of something he provides you, right?
Yeah.
Like the chopping of the wood or the cutting of the hair. If they, I suppose the neighbor, I'd say a little bit different, but there's the idea that, that the reason why we're getting together at 4:00 in the afternoon is because you're going to give something to me. Now, you get benefit too, but it really is a useful thing for me.
And then there's a friendship of pleasure. There's a friendship. These come from Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. You can look it up. Very great. Highly, highly recommend it. But then he focuses on the main type of friendship that we ought to pursue, that we hope is the real good, but it's also the most difficult. So there's a friendship of pleasure that this is probably like fantasy football friends and people that you really naturally like, and you actually just hang out with them because it's just easy and it's nice, and those are great. There's nothing wrong with any of these types of friendship, but we should have, as Bishop Barron calls it, close friends, but Aristotle calls it virtuous friends, that you're pursuing the good together, that you're really trying to pursue something together. And this some ways could be like sports friends as well. I mean, if you're on a team together, you are pursuing a championship together, presumably building each other up, and you're challenging each other and all those types of things. That's why I think sports are such a great thing for young boys and girls. They do help at least instill this type of mentality in friendship, that there's this mutual giving back and forth. And if you don't hold each other accountable, you're not really a team. And it's just like a different sport. It's like track or, wrestling or
tennis.
Something. Yeah. So, I mean, football, although, not a huge fan of all the potential damage of concussions and whatnot. Yeah. Basketball, maybe, and other sports. There's this camaraderie. There's like, if you don't hold as Coach Currier would say, shout out to Coach Currier, my college football coach, if you don't hold the rope, your brother might fall. Yep. If I don't block that guy, the quarterback's going to get crushed. And if he doesn't throw the ball to me in the spot that I need it, I might get crushed.
Yeah.
And I think we can take that and go to our regular friendships. There's there has to be a vulnerability. There has to be a pursuit of something. There has to be accountability. We have to be kind of holding each other accountable, saying like, you know what, like, you didn't block that guy. What the heck happened? Like, and maybe it's a little different with friendships. The football field can get a little fiery, but you might say like, okay, I really need, and that's part of, I think, is the big thing is we probably just don't see that need. Right. I need brothers. I need a wolf pack. From a quote
Shout
from
out
a different
to a previous
movie.
Yeah.
I need a pack of brothers that help me and assist me. And I think, we're kind of bringing this podcast back in some ways because, of this information we're getting. There's just people that don't have good friends. And we want to reiterate here at Transfiguration, too, this is a big priority for us to try to be a community of people together. We have to value friendships, and then we have to put in the hard work. We got to actually the number one currency for friendship is just time.
Amen.
We got to hang out together.
Yeah, no, all that's right. I do think we are made in the image and likeness of God. And I think one of the consequences of that is that in order to be fully human, to develop as God wants us to develop, we have to have other people in our lives. We see that from the very moment of conception. Two people come together in a very particular kind of friendship, and a human life comes forth from that. We obviously recognize that friendship is not always there, but that is the ideal situation. And that lasts us our entire existence. I've been kind of some of my side reading. I've been getting really into a topic that I'm very interested in, political philosophy and some of the ancient ideas about political philosophy. And these are questions about what does it mean to live with other people? What does it mean to be in the polis, the city, which really for the ancients was just a tightly bound community, a community. And there's all kinds of wonderful reflections about that. What does leadership look like in the polis? What are the different kinds of leadership? It all flows from, it is natural for man to live in community. There were some political philosophers, I don't know if it was Rousseau or Hobbes, I don't remember, who basically said that, the city, and I would say the community, the parish, let's use, the reason why that's important, according to these modern philosophers, is that we recognize from the wilderness, living out in the wild, that if you do it on your own, you're going to get killed. And so I'm going to bond together with other people so I won't get killed. In other words, being together it's in some sense a friendship of utility. I need you because you protect me. You give me corn. I give you milk, whatever. We need each other. But for the ancients, and I would say for the Christian faith more importantly, it goes a heck of a lot deeper than that. We're naturally bonded together. It's not because of any outside need. It's the need is inside. It's internal to man and woman. We need each other, and again, to fully flourish as people. But I think one of the consequences of original sin, I know, is that we hide. That's right there. One of the first consequences. God comes looking for Adam, and he hides. And that's not just true in terms of sin. It's also true in terms of human beings. We hide from each other, and we can do that by literally being absent. We can do that by putting up masks. We can do that by playing a part. But all those things have to be attacked if we really are going to have real friendships. In other words, if we're really going to grow in virtue. Why is that important? Because that's the only way we can do it. The virtuous life must be lived with others because that is the kind of creature we are. We're political animals, maybe more understandable. We're social creatures. So I myself, as you say, Justin, small groups are a challenge for me. And part of that, there's a number of different reasons for that. But part of it, I think, is just that it requires real effort to be vulnerable and to receive what the other person's giving because communion is hard for the fallen man, for the fallen woman. We withdraw, we draw back into ourself, again, in 1,000 different ways, some of which we can give the veneer of virtue when it's really not. So I just want to emphasize to all the listeners, whether or not it's hard for you, and I suspect it is, you got to get out and you got to meet some people and you got to spend some time with people. And even if you are an introvert, like I am, I'm an introvert that plays an extrovert on TV, and I think I can do it well, but to recharge, I need time for myself. We're not exempt from that. We're made to be in community, and you have to find ways to develop real friendships, especially if you're going to be the Christian that you're called to be.
Yeah, and I think possibly the easiest way to start is in the home. I mean, I think in our culture, this weird idea of individualism is all over, and it's really prevalent in the home where, for me to be accomplished person, I need to move out and separate myself from my family and get my own job and maybe move to a different state and kind of like establish myself as an individual, that I've accomplished something. But, for our culture, for the past, this was not the case. I mean, we lived with everyone, grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts, and we moved like next door later. And my brothers and sisters were my best friends. And, partially because you had a pursuit together. Yeah. I mean, as a family we didn't have our farm for super long, but a family that's on a farm, or even just kind of the agrarian lifestyle, you're pursuing something together.
And I think, you live together? I mean, that's I don't remember how exactly Aristotle puts it, but something about friendship is, and I think it just boils down to time. I mean, you are spending so much time together, which is I think a critical part of the academy of family life too. You were always together, and so. Anyways, I interrupted you.
No, I think it's just a great place to start, that try to rid ourselves of a radical individualism, whether it's already part of our mentality that I have to move away from home, I have to accomplish we have movies about, sons living in their parents' houses for let this kid get out of here. And, I don't think parents thought that when the kid was 18, and you're like, oh, the kid moved back in, he's just worthless or whatever. The mentality is sometimes, I think that's pretty harmful. So to pursue friendship, with our siblings, siblings in my family were, best mans at weddings. Right. And it's not just like a place of honor, like, oh, well, I hung out with you forever, but I hung out with my little brother forever. He's 3 years younger than me, and my older siblings are like way older. Like, they're ancient. I'm just kidding. I love y'all, but they were a lot older, so they were kind of like aunts and uncles a little bit. They were off into college by the time I was in grade school. Family, so I hung out with my little brother like all the time, for better or worse. He hated it when I was a kid because I was like, get out here and play football with me.
Right.
But we're friends, we hung out and our friends hung out together, and he hung out with my friends. And, in some ways we're pursuing this thing together. And then also, I think there's also in our culture right now is this weird, so establish friendships in your house. However, you gotta get out of the house too. I think there's at least I see it in some of the families around me and my own family, that I just gotta be with my kids forever and always. And, I have to be there every single night, and I can't, part of it I think is maybe I'm too busy. And then part of it is also, it's just a lot harder to get out of the house and hang out with someone. And sometimes the value, the value proposition for us is like, well, we're just hanging out to watch football. I can do that at home, and I'm establishing, a better relationship with my kids, and isn't that more valuable? And it's valuable, but I think like at least twice a month, you got to get out of the house, and you got to have some time with other men or other women, whatever it is. And I highly encourage, a virtuous relationship, but it's not always going to start there. You might just hang out because you have something in common. Yeah. I like biking. I invite people to go biking. Yeah. There's 5 or 6 guys in the parish that I've invited going biking. That's kind of the start, at least for me, is a pursued interest. Mm-hmm. and we go out and hang out together. And then, we just have to spend time together, and it's difficult. You have to schedule, you have to clear things out. But, I go out at biking at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
I'm back before the ladies are even awake. Let's be honest.
You find time.
Shout out to the ladies at the home sleeping until
ladies,
9.
Yeah.
But I love you. But that's one way. Our men's groups are at 6:30 in the morning on Saturdays.
That's right.
The women's groups here at Transfiguration, we try to accommodate for different times, in different evenings and mornings and afternoons and whatever else, meeting at people's houses. But I really want to encourage you to get out of the comfort zone and go pursue some relationships. And then also, after a while, pursue some other relationships further that you have. Just like Jesus, Father's got his Bible out here. We don't use the Bible too much on our podcast. I always feel guilty about that.
Mea culpa.
But Jesus had the 12, and then he had the 3.
That's right.
So he had the 12 that, and in case we forget about this, if you're watching The Chosen, he had the 12, and he was with them for 3 years.
Yeah.
So if you put in the time, if you feel like this is like, oh, this isn't working, I went for a bike ride, and we just didn't hit it off or whatever, fine. But he did this for 3 years, and they weren't all like friends before that.
Right.
And there's some memes out there that says, one of Jesus's main miracles was hanging out with 12 middle-aged men for 3 years,
Nice.
And not like killing them or whatever. And then he had the 3.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a difference of intimacy.
Yeah, that's right.
And we see that in the scriptures, but we also should see that within our own lives as well. There should probably, I'm not going to share intimately with 12 people.
Yep.
That's probably unhealthy.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably most likely unhealthy.
Yeah.
But if I share with 1, 2, or 3 fairly intimately, and I'm in whatever word you want to use, and I'm naked without shame with them, that's a really, really good thing, because when we bring stuff into the light, it's just good. I mean, it part of it is like going to confession. Our brothers or sisters can be a good examination of your life, and knowing that you're going to share with them vulnerably, it helps live your life a little differently.
No doubt. All of us priests are encouraged to have priest support groups. These are groups of generally between 4 and 8 priests who get together. I would say probably most support groups probably once a month, and it can take a variety of forms, but certainly part of that time together is sharing about the struggles and the joys of one's life that one shares with others, and the interior struggles and some of those. And that is so important for us as priests. I mean, for us as men, first of all, but just as us as priests too, because it can be isolating at times, the role. But what I was going to use that for was a jumping off point to say that it's got to be scheduled, and you have to be deliberate. And all the guys in that group, you have to come with a certain understanding. So, I think one practice that I might encourage people to do, and it requires someone who is at a certain level of maturity and is striving to take the faith seriously, with failures, but seriously, is I think it can be a very worthwhile practice to have a conversation one night and say, you know what, guys, I really love you. I love being with you. This is fantastic. We love our time and watching football or whatever, hanging out in the backyard, but I want to up the game here. And, would you guys be interested in meeting once a month as a support group, And I think that I've heard many folks, especially those in some of the charismatic communities in the Archdiocese, that's become incredibly important to them. And that you don't have to belong to a group to do that. You don't have to belong to some overarching organization. I think in some sense we're trying to do it with our men's group on Saturday mornings. I just think that to be explicit and deliberate about it is important. It can develop. It can develop naturally in the family or through a common interest, and that's wonderful when it does. But I also think there's something to be said too for, here's what I want to do. I want to develop 2 or 3 friendships with brothers or women, whatever, if you're a lady, and we're going to be clear with each other. Here's, every month we're going to check in. We're going to talk about basically what you just said. We're going to talk about our struggles, real struggles. And that's another ingredient here. It's a huge waste of time if there's a holding back, And we recognize as time goes on, you share more and more. You don't go full on, fire hose to begin with. But if there's a constant holding back on the part of one member in the pre-support group, for example, it's just a waste of time. So you got to put in, again, getting back to the beginning of the podcast, you got to put in the work, and you got to be willing, as you say, to be naked, and that involves trust. That involves finding the right people. Not everybody's going to be up for this, and you got to find people. And my hope, my prayer is that you can find some of those people that you would want to have that kind of relationship with at our, Sunday parish picnics, at our parish festival, our fellow parents in the school, whatever. I'm hoping that you can find those candidates at Transfiguration.
Yeah, and I would like to pursue the, Genesis story too. Is sin wants to keep us apart. Mm-hmm. Sin wants to keep us hiding from others and hiding from ourselves, and we can play a part in our own lives. Yeah. And easily we become someone who we're not, right. Because sin keeps us apart. Sin keeps us hiding. That's the first thing, Adam and Eve hide from each other. Yep. And then they also hide from God. Yep. And part of it is, I would be willing to bet, at least for my own self, is part of it is a thought that if they really see me, that's what sin creeps into. If they really saw me in my ugliness, they would reject me, mm-hmm. and they would throw me out. And unfortunately, we've probably seen that too much in our lives as well. And even, when people sin, I think the reaction sometimes is, especially by sometimes conservative circles, is to create, they're like a pariah. They're a horrible person and blah, 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 and they're going to hell, and, but to love them and say, all right, I'm going to help you get back up, and we're going to move forward, and how can I help you, and how can we help each other, and to acknowledge that, all right, yeah, and part of it is like, I have to acknowledge that I've been there. Sometimes we can be, like, oh, I can't believe this person would do this. Mm. And we just have to look in the mirror kind of quickly and say, well, what about all the stuff you've done quick, no, okay, right. And I'm allowed a little mercy there. Yeah. And to look at the other person, the word respect, to look again, spectare, to look again at the person with love and say, okay, yeah, I've been there. And how did I get out? I didn't get out by being shamed or ridiculed or called names or whatever else. I got out by help and encouragement, and to not say like, oh, that's okay, no big deal. That was probably a thing of the last 20 years as well. Oh no, that's fine. Oh no, that's okay. I mean, I had friends that went to confession and said they confess certain sins, and the priest said, oh, that's not a sin. It's like, that's not helpful. No. However, but to lift them up and say, it's so good that if someone shares something very intimate or is really putting themselves out there, thank them for it. I'm ridiculously honored if someone tells me a sin that they're struggling with. Sure, absolutely. I mean, you get to hear it every single day. It's true. And maybe it's not as personally honoring. Sure. But I mean, in some ways, hearing confessions awesome. Got to be like really uplifting, actually,
100%, absolutely. No, there's something very beautiful and powerful, kind of ironically powerful about admitting one's failure. And I think the best part of my life is being able to tell people, that they are loved after they've confessed things that are really dark and difficult. And it's a beauty for me because you see the power of admission and the strength that takes and the power of grace in people's lives. So yeah, a big part of friendship is this willingness to be vulnerable. And it takes time. I mean, there's where, again, the piece of hard work. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the hours. But you need to. And we should be inspired by and directed by the Lord himself, who puts in the time with us. In the Gospel of John here in this book, Jesus in the upper room, and he says to his apostles, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends, because I've shared with you everything that I've heard from the Father. I no longer call you slaves, I call you friends. That in and of itself, that revelation that God himself wants to be our friend would be enough for 1,000 podcasts. How is it possible for God, who is the infinite one, without any need to be our friend? It is through that choice, that divine choice he makes. Barron talks about the incarnation, the choice of God to be with us. Think about that. Friendship through being with us. He simply puts in the time. God walks with us. He runs with us. He suffers with us, and he waits for us to respond to him. And then in recognizing his radical graciousness, we're called to give that to others. But again, I do want to couch that in that it's we're called to love everyone, but there's going to be a much smaller group, that Peter, Paul, and James, that are the real close friends. And you need to have them, my brothers and sisters. You need them for your own growth as a husband, as a father, as a mom, as a wife, as a student. You need to have them. If you just want to be a human, let alone to be a Christian, you got to have those close friendships where you're challenged, where you're encouraged, where you're loved, and where you come to know who you are. You come to know who you are. That's the child. I've heard it reflect, maybe even JP2 reflects upon this, that that initial experience of the child as they begin to be able to see, talking about the infant here, the face of their parents, and looking at them, they come to know who they are. Adam himself, the theology of the body. In looking at Eve, he comes to know who he is. Well, I would say something similar happens in virtuous friendship. You come to know yourself by looking at the other and by their own feedback. It might have been Aristotle, I don't know, I can't remember now who said it, but the friend is the other self, self. And you look upon them and you come to realize not only who you want to be, their own virtues, but also you begin to recognize through them, who you are.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to reflect on. God could have just wiped away our sin, and he chose not to. And I think he chose not to prudently. I think I can easily say that.
I think that's right.
God is prudent.
I think so.
I will not be a heretic in this podcast.
Hope you're listening, Dr. Washburn.
God, in his providence and in his love for his creation, found it most advantageous to become like us, to be with us. I think that's part of the thing. Like, he came to be with us, not just, Emmanuel, God with us, right? And it's not just God forgiving us and, his mercy outrules his justice and he just wipes it clean. But actually there's something to being known and loved personally that makes Christianity completely different than everything else. Why did other faiths or even atheists will say, why did your God have to come and die? Well, he came to be with us because we are with us people. We are a communal people.
That's the title for the podcast. We are with us people.
We are with us people, and they're going to think, okay, yeah, nice.
Under the tent doing what?
What does that? Yeah, you guys smoking something? No, but I think that's kind of part of it. Like, I have to be with other people, and I can pursue that. I can have, I can send thoughts and prayers, but I got to actually be with that person. I can send thoughts and prayers when someone dies, but it's 1,000 times different to go to the funeral.
No doubt. Or the wake, no doubt. Absolutely.
And be there and say, I am here with you.
Yeah.
Like everyone's saying last year, we're in it together. No, you're not. You're not coming over to my house. You're not helping me. I mean, that's nice. True. Thoughts and prayers are great, but go to that funeral. I mean, it's a work of mercy for a reason.
No, 100%.
And it just feels 1,000 times different getting a phone call or a text message, hey, praying for you, love you, but to be there and say, like, I'm going to take you out for dinner on your birthday instead of just saying, happy birthday.
No, that's right. And I think about my mother's funeral and how touched I was that people came to the wake and in the funeral itself. And yeah, you're right. It just people being there, that's very powerful. And I think it illustrates how much we are with us people. That we are truly with us people.
We are with us people.
I love it. That might have to be part of the new logo.
That's a new sentence.
Maybe we can add that to the logo for the capital campaign. We are with us, people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, that kind of encapsulates it. In order to be with us, people, though, like Father said, you got to put it in your calendar.
Amen.
Like
exactly. And
you got to start planning.
You got to commit.
Send out emails, phone calls, texts. Say, hey, let's hang out. I'm having lunch and hitting golf balls tomorrow with some buddies.
Speaking of which, I just want to. I recognize this podcast is going to come out. Will it come out after our parish picnic on Sunday?
Yeah. No, 7 a.m.
7 a.m. So if you're hearing this, I recognize it's probably not on your calendar right now, but we're going to have once a month, we're going to try to get together on Parish Formation Sundays, a little potluck after the 10:30 Mass. Nothing super fancy, just spending time with ordinary people who are rocking it like you.
Just bring food.
Exactly.
Bring food to the 10 a.m. Mass. If you need to refrigerate it, we'll put it in the fridge for you. If you need to keep
Mass, the 10:30
10:30. Yeah, I'm changing the Mass times as well. Changing our language and our Mass times. Come into the 10:30 Mass, show up, bring some food for your family, like a picnic, and we're just going to eat it together.
Yeah.
And we're going to spend some carefree timelessness together and just hang out as a parish. And this is just like infants. These are little steps.
That's right.
Little steps, and we encourage you to sit with someone new, sit with a different family, and maybe God forbid, invite them over to your house.
Amen.
Have them over for dinner. This was kind of nice. Why don't we have a picnic after next Sunday's Mass?
That's right.
At our house.
That's right. That'd be wonderful.
I'll make the bacon.
Man, bacon. I could go for some bacon right now. Well, brother, I've enjoyed our conversation, and I hope and pray that our listeners might be inspired to be more with us people.
We got to do it too.
I know it.
Yep.
I know it. Amen.
Bike ride. Anyone interested in monthly bike rides? Saturday mornings, we're doing monthly bike rides.
Word.
Transfiguration. We're looking at like 14 to 17 miles an hour. Just let me know.
We're gonna have a Transfiguration biker gang. I love it.
Yeah, pedal biker gang.
Can you get like eventually?
We can get.
I think we should get
jerseys.
Get some jerseys.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, with some Please, I'm serious. This would be awesome.
I just got a Jesus jersey. It's super horrible and ugly, but it's
I think
cool.
I got a picture of that.
Powered by Jesus.
Yes. Well, brothers and sisters, may God bless you all. And friendship is hard, but we need to do it. We need to do it if we're going to be human. We need to do it if we're going to be Christians. So find, first of all, praise God for the friends that you already have. Cherish them, honor them. If you got friends that are leading you astray, maybe you got to make some choices there. And then also find some folks that you really want to pursue sanctity with, and let them know that, and hold each other accountable, spend time together, and make it home together. So Transfiguration exists to bring all those in East Metro to Christ, the source and summit of our daily and eternal lives. May Almighty God bless you all, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, brother.